In the dim haze of a rehearsal studio, the legends reassembled, older, wiser, but still unmistakably Black Sabbath. Tony Iommi, fingers curled around the neck of his guitar, played the riff that launched 1,000 bands. A low rumble of distortion rolled through the room like thunder in a cave. Beside him, Geezer Butler tuned his bass with methodical precision. Every note mattered now. This wasn't just another tour. It was the final curtain call, back to the beginning. The atmosphere was reverent but charged. Cameras captured every detail. A weathered Ozzy Osbourne adjusting his in-ear monitors, nodding toward Iommi, eyes flickering with a chaotic fire that hadn't dimmed with age. They weren't here to relive the past. They were preparing to honor it. The rehearsal space had been transformed into a shrine of sorts. Vintage posters, worn amps, and the scent of leather and sawdust filled the air. The past wasn't behind them. It was right there in the room. The farewell show, announced months earlier, had already become one of the most anticipated rock events in recent memory. Fans across generations were scrambling for tickets. Some had followed Sabbath since the early 70s. Others had discovered them through vinyl hand-me-downs or streaming rabbit holes. All were bound by the same reverence for the music, the mythology, and the weight of what Black Sabbath meant to rock and metal. Preparations weren't merely technical, they were spiritual. Ozzy, once the Prince of Darkness, now moved with the care of a man whose body bore every mile of the journey, but whose voice still reached into something primal. He joked between takes, cracked a beer, and then snapped instantly into focus when the opening bars of War Pigs filled the space. His voice, hoarse, but unmistakably his, sliced through the distortion like a blade. Off to the side, a documentary crew gathered B-roll. This wasn't just a show. It was a memorial, a celebration, and a legacy all at once. Every soundcheck, every moment of silence between rehearsals was being captured for what would become a living artifact of Black Sabbath's final chapter. Even in their farewells, the band exuded power. The setlist had been a point of intense discussion. Should they stick strictly to the classics or nod to lesser-known tracks that fans had long championed? Naipe, Iron Man, Children of the Grave, all expected. But there were whispers of rare deep cuts, and even an unreleased riff or two making their way into the finale. The title Back to the Beginning wasn't a gimmick. It was a vow. Sabbath was returning to its roots, not just in song selection, but in stage design, ambience, and intention. No pyrotechnics or elaborate stage gimmicks. Just four men and their instruments, playing as if it were 1970 again, when heavy metal was being invented in real time. There were quiet moments, too. Iommi was seen reflecting in solitude, sitting by a battered amplifier, lost in memory. The camera panned to a wall of guitar pedals, many custom-made and road-worn, each carrying decades of stories. Geezer wrote notes in a dog-eared notebook, refining lyrical emphasis, double-checking transitions. These weren't just preparations, they were rituals. Drums thundered in the background, even as Bill Ward's absence loomed quietly over the sessions. Still, the spirit of the original four hovered in every corner. Tommy Clufetos, once again behind the kit, pounded with both reverence and precision. He wasn't replacing Ward, no one could, but he was channeling something sacred, pounding out history with every beat. The band discussed on Mick their memories, funny, tragic, surreal. Ozzy recalled the first time they played Paranoid live, and nobody knew the words. Geezer remembered a riot in Germany that forced them to play through a power cut. The story spilled like ash from a long-burning fire, all feeding into the mythos that surrounded them. Even with the heaviness of the finality, there was laughter. Ozzy still howled with delight when a joke landed. Tommy grinned through his stoicism. There was camaraderie, a brotherhood forged in distortion and war stories. As the camera pulled back on the final rehearsal for the day, the four silhouettes stood in the same familiar line: guitar, bass, drums, and that unmistakable voice. No artifice, no filter, just raw Sabbath. They played Black Sabbath, the song that started it all, and for a moment, time folded in on itself. It was 1969 again, then 2025, then beyond. This was not the end of Black Sabbath. It was the last page in a mythic chapter, a sonic ritual, a return to the very darkness from which they were born, a final offering to the gods of metal. The preparations were nearly complete. The riffs had been summoned. The moment was drawing near. Soon, the world would bear witness to Back to the Beginning, not just a concert, a resurrection, a reckoning, a goodbye worthy of legends.